Okay, Rabotai. Today, the topic is the different nuschaot and minhagim of birkat hamazon. Now, what's fascinating is in birkat hamazon, we're going to discuss a question today that really is going to manifest and bring to light one of the subjects that we spoke about beforehand, which is how do we follow in Klalei Apsak? How do Chachmei Ma'arav follow in Klalei Apsak? And it's something that I always had in my notes that I wanted to research. And recently I had a chance to look into it a little bit deeper, and I was able to figure out something that I always puzzled me, which is the following. In Birkat Hamazon, the nusach of the bracha of Nodelecha in the second beracha. So if one opens up the sidurim that are the Moroccan sidurim, today I had the opportunity to check maybe 10 different Moroccan sidurim. Around 5 of them were old sidurim that I actually picked up from the Bet HaKnesset of Fez, sidurim that they themselves are at least 100 years old, and some of them didn't even have written what hotza'ah it is. It's just written, it's just an old sidur. And in them, for the most part, the nusach is written like you have in the Tefillat HaChodesh as well. And it's written like this: Nodelecha Adonai Eloheinu al Shem Avdeinu Eretz Chemda Tova Rechova Brit vetorah Chaim Umazon. Some Tefillat HaChodesh don't even have the first Brit vetorah, but they have the next one. Al shehotzetanu me'eretz Mitzrayim ufididanu mibet avadim ve'al beritcha shechatamta bibsarenu ve'al toratecha shelimadetanu. And that line is in brackets as well as Brit vetorah. And it's written that the woman shouldn't say Brit vetorah, and the woman shouldn't say Ve'al beritcha shechatamta b'sarenu ve'al toratecha shelimadetanu. And this requires explanation. Do the women really do this? I highly doubted that most men know that to tell their wives that when they do birkat hamazon they should skip the word Brit vetorah, and they should also skip Ve'al beritcha shechatamta b'sarenu ve'al toratecha shelimadetanu. But this is what's written in almost all, as far as I know, all Sidurei Ma'arav that are the Sidurim that were common. And let us see what is the source of skipping, for women skipping Brit vetorah. Should they skip Brit vetorah? And then we'll if we have time, we'll discuss other nuschaot of Birkat Hamazon. So the source of in general, if women are chayav Birkat Hamazon or not, is a Gemara in Masechet Brachot, Daf Chaf Amud Bet. In the Mishnah it says women are chayav b'tfilah, mezuzah, ubi Birkat Hamazon. And the Gemara asks, Birkat Hamazon, obviously, mitzvot aseh shelo hazeman gera mahu. Answers the Gemara, Oil v'chtiv betet Adonai lachem ba'erev basar lechol velechem ba'boker lizvoa. Since there it's written that Hashem is going to give you at night meat and bread in the morning, so it's like a mitzvah aseh shazman grama kamash balan lo. Fascinating Gemara. We'll see the havamina that since Hashem gives a boker basar at night and lechem during the day, that's the food is a mitzvah aseh shazman grama. Either way, that's what the Gemara says. Later on, the Gemara has a discussion. Amar le Ravina le Rava. Nashim bebirkat hamazon de oraita or de rabbanan. Okay, now that we know that women are chayav in birkat hamazon, is it mide oraita or is it mide rabbanan? Why would we think that birkat hamazon would be de rabbanan? So it's written ve'achalta ve'savatu barachta, and it's a mitzvah shelo hazman grama dami. So why would we think that it's not de oraita? So Rashi says, dichtiv על הארץ הטובה שנתן לך, והארץ נתנה לי נקבות להתחלק. because it's written on the Aretz Shenchat Lavotenu. It's written that Alaretz Tova Shenatan Lach, you gave us the land, and women are not part of the land. Leitchalek. You're gonna ask me Benot Shelovchad. So he says they took from their father's portion. Now, Tosfot doesn't like this pshat because he says, if so, Kohanim and Leviim also should not be able to say ala aretz tova shenatan lach because they weren't part of the chalukah. So it answers Tosfot that the reason why the Gemara says that women are only chayav derabanan because it's written al beritcha shechatabta b'sarenu v'al toratcha shelimadetanu, and women are lo babrit velo batorah. Women don't have a brit, and they also are not mitzuva in Torah. And like it's written in Daf Memtet, that anybody who doesn't say brit vetorah lo yitzei chovato. So if you're not yitzei chovato, and women are not shayach to that, so it's obviously their chiyuv is the Rabbanan. Now Tosfot doesn't say that a woman doesn't say brit vetorah. All Tosfot says is that women are not shayach to brit vetorah. Correct? The Rashba also in the Gemara over here asks a little bit different. He says Gerim should not be able to say birkat hamazon because they're all, according to Rashi, because they also don't have a chelik in the nachla. He doesn't ask about Kohanim v'Levim. So the answer is no. You have to say that Gerim, they're min zachar. At least they are males, and males are nochel generally. But that's why he didn't answer. That's why he didn't ask from Kohanim v'Levim, because for him it was pashut. Kohanim v'Levim are a min zachar or a min Yisrael. But Gerim maybe are not a min Yisrael, so they're not Kahal Hashem. So that would have been the Havamina. Either way, the Rashba and Tosfot both say that women can't say Brit Torah. In Daf Memtet Amud Aleph, it's written indeed that women, it's written that whoever doesn't say Brit Torah, lo yatsa yedei chovato. So Brit Torah is a central part of birkat hamazon. So far, so good? Okay. So, the question is, how do we follow lehalacha then? Do women say Brit Torah or not? So, it's not written in any of the Rishonim that women should not say Brit Torah. It just says they're not part of Brit Torah. That's the nusach of birkat hamazon. They're not part of Brit Torah, and therefore, if they're not part of Brit Torah, then they shouldn't they shouldn't be able to say birkat hamazon. The oraita, but still, it's part of the nusach. So the Bet Yosef in Siman Kuf Pei Zayin says the following. He brings first of all, in the tour, it's brought a discussion that the Rosh wouldn't say Al Shinchalta Lavotenu Eretz Chemda Tova Urchava Ve'al Sheotzetanu Meretz Mitzrayim, because it said anyways Al Beritcha Shechatamta B'Yisrael Ve'al Toratcha Shelimadetanu. Okay, and the minag, the Torah says, is to say Eretz Chemda Tova Urchava Brit Vetorah Chaim Umazon. So the minag is to say Brit Vetorah. So comes along the the Kolbo, and he brings in the name of the Ra'avad, brought down in the Bet Yosef, the Nashim ve'avadim lo amri lehu. They don't say Brit veTorah. The Nashim lav b'nei Brit, ve'avadim lav b'nei Torah ninhu. Which, that, also you have to understand, what does that mean? Each one doesn't say only one of them, or they don't say both of them. It's a separate question. So the Bet Yosef brings in the name of the Kolbo, who brings the name of the Ravad, that women don't say Brit veTorah. And the Bedek HaBayit, which is the glosses on the Bet Yosef, so the Bedek HaBayit says, Tamahani, I don't understand. Avadim itnehu b'mitzvot, sheisha chayevet. First of all, they are b'nei Torah, they are mechuyev in Torah. V'gam al nashim yesh ladun. Listen to the Bet Yosef. She'enikra Adam ela keshesh yesh leisha. A person is not called a complete Adam unless he has a wife. And havele zachar v'nekeva guf echad v'shapir matzu lemeimar al beritcha shechatamta b'bsarenu. And if so, for sure they could say al beritcha shechatamta b'bsarenu, because men and women are guf echad. Now this svara is a pele. Why would it make a difference? Since a man and woman are considered guf echad, then they could say al beritcha shechatamta b'bsarenu. But the Bet Yosef really rejects the kolbo. How do and it seems to be from the Bedek Habayit rejects the kolbo. So the Rama in Siman Kuf Pei Zayin brings this kolbo, and the Rama says like this: Orach Chaim Siman Kuf Pei Zayin Im lo eskir bebirkat haaretz brit vetorah afilu im lo chiser ela echad mem machzirin oto. If he didn't mention in birkat haaretz brit vetorah, even if he was only missing one of them, we make him go back. And says the Rama, v'nashim ve'avadim lo yomru brit vetorah. The nashim lav b'nei brit ve'avadim lav b'nei torah ninu. So the Rama says not to say it. Now, this is what's fascinating over here, because we're going to see in the moment the Bedek Habayit rejects this. The Bet Yosef says not to say Brit Vetorah, and the Rama says not to say Brit Vetorah. What are the klalim of Chachmei HaMa'arav? That if the Bet Yosef writes something, even if the Bedek Habayit writes not that way, we follow the Bet Yosef. That's why all the Sidurim in Morocco, which are based on the Sidurim in Livorno, which had this Derech HaPsak as well, say not to say it. As well, when Maran wasn't Megale Da'at, and the Rama says to do something, how do we follow? Like the Rama. And over here, Maran was not Megale Da'at, rather the Rama says it. Kibalnu hora'at Rama filu keneged elef poskim. And if that's the case, over here, that since the Bet Yosef writes something, even though the Bedek Habayit, the Shulchan Aruch himself writes later on not to do it. We were Mekabel only the Bet Yosef and the Shulchan Aruch. Here the Shulchan Aruch doesn't say anything. The Rama does say something. That's how we follow. And it seems to be that this was the common Sephardic psak. If all of the original Sephardic Sidurim said to say this. So where did this change? The Magen Avram writes already that he hasn't seen Sarichian al masamchu achshav anashim leomra. He sees that nowadays the women do say Brit Vetorah. And he brings the tirutz of the Bet Yosef, of the Bedek Habayit, and he says, you can't tell me that it's because a person is not Nikra Ella Adam unless he has a wife. Because we say that Nashim are Mevarech Birkat Torah because they have to learn their own mitzvot, not because of their husband. And on top of that, it's written that they could say Britcha because a woman is like she has a Brit. So therefore, the Magen Avram says that's why Nashim nowadays say Birkat say Al Beritcha Shechata B'Yisrael V'Al Toratcha Shelimadetanu. The Shari Tshuva brings the Elia Rabbah, who also says like the Rama, brings many proofs in the Gemara like the Rama. One of the proofs, it's a very very strong proof, it's written in the Gemara in Daf Mem Tet Amud Aleph that Rav Zeira said to Rav Chizda, let's do Birkat HaMazon. He says, why don't you do Zimun for us? He says, I don't know how to do Birkat HaMazon, and you want me to give you a Mishnah? You want me to tell you a Mishnah? He says, why does he not know how to say Birkat HaMazon? So it says a story, because that when he was asked to say Birkat HaMazon, he didn't want to do it. Why? Ve'amai lo delot amri lo brit velo torah velo malchut. So he says, why didn't you say Birkat HaMazon? He says, lo brit vetorah, because amarav lo amar brit vetorah u malchut yatsa brit lefi she'enu benashim torah malchut lefi she'enu lo benashim velo be'avadim. So it's written in the Gemara that Rav didn't want to say Brit Vetorah in Birkat HaMazon because it's not shayach by ladies, not shayach and it's not shayach by avadim. So you see in the Gemara that you're able to take away those words if it's not shayach to that person. And indeed, that's what the El Yerabba says that as well. So why do some people say that you should say Brit vetorah? If you already have Rishonim that write that you shouldn't, so why did it become customary? So the Chida in Birkei Yosef and in Machzik Bracha Siman Kuf Pei Zayin bring a Meiri that the Meiri says that women should also say Brit vetorah, and even though they're not mitzvah. Here, let me read you the Meiri 2 seconds. The Meiri is in Daf Mem Tet Amud Aleph, Dibur Matchil Kol, says the following. V'nashim yesh omrim she'en maskirot brit vetorah. Some say they shouldn't say brit vetorah. Hoil ve'en lahem etzlam din v'dvarim v'lada'atenu af nafshim obrot ken. Mididavi birkat haaretz. אף על פי שאינם חלק בארץ, שהם בכלל ישראל, ועל ישראל הם אומרות כך. Just like they're not חלק in the arts, but they're saying it on Am Yisrael who has it. So too Brit vetorah. That's what the Meiri says. So you have a Meiri who says to say it. So he says you should definitely say Brit vetorah. The truth is, I don't understand why the Chida is Matche the Ramah, who's based on the Ra'avad and the Kolbo. Not only that, it's not only the Ra'avad who mentions this. If one takes a look in the nusach of, one moment, if one takes a look in the Shari Tshuva of the Teshuvot of Rav Hai Gaon Siman Shin Mem Hei, he writes Mefurish that a woman shouldn't say birkat hamazon to be motzi a man because she has to say brit vetorah. And how could she say al beritcha shechadab dabib sarenu? The Ramban in Milchamot also writes in Brachot Daf Yud Bet Amud Aleph in the Milchamot, like that he brings down in the name of the Geonim, and like the Ra'avad as we mentioned, that women don't say brit vetorah. Sefer HaMichtam seems to be Rashi and Tosfot and Erechin say this. So there's a whole slew of Rishonim that write explicitly like this Kolbo and the Ra'avad. So Nachon, we have the Meiri who's writing Dat Atzmo. But how is the Meiri going to be Matche Rishonim and Geonim Mefurash? Not only that, even the Berek Habayit has questions, but it's not strong enough to be Matche the original Geonim. So it's a very strong basis to follow the Ramah. But as I mentioned, it's interesting that the Magen Avram says that women do say it, and I believe that's the minhag by Ashkenazim, that they do say Al Brit Chashchata B'B'Sharenu, even though the Ramah says not to say it. But this is a proof that by Edot HaMa'ara, they follow the Ramah more than other Edot. Not only like the Ramah, we also follow the Bet Yosef. The Bet Yosef over here writes from the Kolbo, and that's the original Psak, and that's how they follow. So that's something that's interesting. I did see that the Sidur Bet Minucha sides with the Chida. He was a colleague of the Chida, but as I mentioned, I saw all the Sidurim, the Chesed LeAvram, Rav Avram Ankawa, and all the old Tfilat HaChodesh. Now what's interesting is that some of them say the word Brit vetorah and Al Brit Chashchata B'Sarenu, and some say, I saw some Tfilat HaChodesh that don't have the words Brit vetorah, but they have Al Brit Chashchata B'Sarenu. All of them say in brackets not to say Al Brit Chashchata B'Sarenu. Most of them also have in brackets Brit vetorah, but there were a few that didn't have in brackets the words Brit vetorah, and I wondered why. I don't know. I thought at the beginning it was a mistake, but I saw 2 or 3 Sidurim that way, so I don't have an answer to why some Sidurim, despite the fact that they have Al Brit Chashchata B'Sarenu in parentheses, Brit vetorah they don't have in parentheses. Either way, I saw like a Sidur from Rome, I saw a Sidur from the Tunisian Sidurim. They all also follow like this, that women don't say Brit vetorah. And I don't know too many women who do this, because even the Ashkenazim don't do it, as the Magen Avram argues on the Rama, but there's very strong sources by the Ma'aravi. So that is one interesting point. That is one interesting point. Another one is there are other nuschaot. There are other nuschaot that write in the beginning of Birkat HaMazon. If you ever took a look at Birkat HaMazon from the Moroccans, it's written, Baruch Ata Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, Hazanenu velo mima'asenu, Hamefarnesenu velo mitzidkotenu, Hama'adif tuvo alenu, Hazan otanu ve'et haolam kulo. So what is this nusach? Hazanenu velo mima'asenu. This is what's written in the Livorno Sidurim. A lot of them have them in brackets. And it's very hard to say what exactly the minhag was. I know some people, they say die hard. That's how they taught it in Morocco. Other people say it really depended on the places. But the truth is, the source of this is not so clear. It doesn't seem to be that any of the Rishonim have this girsa. It's written in the later Rishonim. And the Sefer Yad Aaron, he asks on this nusach. Not only that, I saw in the Sefer Keter Shem Tov, which is old Minhagei Amsterdam and Minhagei London. Where's the Keter Shem Tov? Oh, here it is. See, there's a Keter Shem Tov over here. He writes that the Bach says that some have a nusach to say. Bach says that some have a nusach to say Hama'adif tuvo alenu. He says you shouldn't say ot pei bebirkat hamazon, because if somebody is mevarach birkat hamazon, en sholet bo ketzef, shetzef, and af. So you don't try to stay away from the pei. I didn't check the whole birkat hamazon. Do we have any pays in there? Any pays sofits at least? But hazanenu v'lo mimasenu, that's not the reason. There's no pay over there. But nevertheless, it seems to be that was a custom. That was a custom by many places to say. But the Yad Aaron says we haven't found this nusach, so why should we say it? Also, the Chida he doesn't write it. So it's a little bit of a tzarachian by me. My thoughts is that you can't really be kovea that it's a minhag, because it was in parentheses. So some people did say it, some people didn't. It's not like al berit chashachatamta b'b'sarenu, which is explicit in the Ramah, and it's explicit in parentheses that's how it's explicit in the Sidurim that's how it should be done. Okay, other nuschaot. Bechen bechesed uberachamim rabim. We say berachamim rabim. Also, it's not found in most of the Sidurim. So it's not really clear where that comes from. I can't say that that's a strong minhag. Now, there is an interesting minhag that before the bracha of Nodeh Lecha, there's a nusach in brackets, Al Artsenu. Let me bring out the exact nusach. There's the nusach Al Artsenu ve'al Nachalat Avotenu. A lot of people had in brackets that they would say. There's also, just to bring to your attention, certain shinui nuschaot. In Rachem, it says V'lo lidei alvatam shematnatam me'uta ve'cherpatam meruba ela liyadcha mle'a ve'rechava. It's a nice, definitely a nice statement, and that was our minhag that we would say that. It's not written in brackets. And once again, these are nuschaot that are descended down. And another one that somebody just sent me a voice note that their child does it this way, that they taught their child to do it this way. After the bracha Bonei Yerushalayim Binyan Yerushalayim Amen, it's written before Baruch Ata Hashem La'ed Alavin Malkeinu B'chayenu U'B'chaye Kol Kal Bet Yisrael Tibane Ir Tzion Berina V'tikon Avodat HaKodesh B'Shalayim Ve'armon Al Mishpato Yeshev B'karov Kevarishona. So how about that? How about that nusach? It's definitely a whole long section that's in there that the Tefillat HaChodesh brings down. And this too is something that it really depends on the girsaot. Seems to be definitely it was much more of a minhag to say this, but as I mentioned, things that are in brackets are much more questionable. Things that are not in brackets is something that could be the scud. Over here, it seems it wasn't in brackets, so it's something much more common. And I'll just end off with one last thing, was regarding the nusach of zimun. So by Edot HaMizrach, they have a nusach, Havlan v'nivrich lemalka ila kadisha, and that's a hazmana of kutsha brichu, and that the makor of that is in the Zohar Kadosh, right? Havlan v'nivrich lemalka ila kadisha. It's that you're being mazmin also for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now, I was recently at a table and I made the big mistake of saying Havlan v'nivrich lemalka ila kadisha, and I had a Rav there that learned in the yeshiva of Fez up until 23 years old. In the yeshiva of Fez, he's already in his 80s, and he looks to me, he says, why did you say such a nusach? We never had that. Our nusach, all simply we say is Havlan Nivarech, and that's it. We don't say Havlan v'nirvich malkai la kadisha, birshut malkai la kadisha. All of that is written, it's based on the Edot HaMizrach, and it's not in any of the Sidurim of Livorno. It's not in the Sidurim of the Chida. And Rav Yitzchak Palaji in the Sefer Yefil Alev Chelek Aleph asks, Yesh li tmoal minag shonagim shemevarech birkat hamazon. He says, Birshut malka ila kadisha, Birshut balabayit, Birshut rabberdai. It's not written in any of the poskim. So it's ki'ilu. It's chas v'sholom. You're asking permission from Hashem and from people, and you're equating it. So he says, obviously, you're supposed to be mazmin like it's written in the Zohar Kadosh, but it never says to be mazmin in the name of kutsha brichu. That it's not written. So our minhag was never to say Havlan v'chmakari kadisha. Our minhag is to say after that the bracha Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo, and then we go on to birkat hamazon. So that's more or less some of the different nuschaot that I wanted to share with you. Baruch.